Hello and welcome to the Dyslexia Mom Boss podcast, the show that helps you not only feel empowered and knowledgeable, but confident and a boss mom in the dyslexia journey. I'm your host, Dr. Lauren. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Dyslexia Mom Boss podcast. I have this week a guest who is another science of reading guru, enthusiast, such a fantastic resource to the community and also to parents. And so I'm really excited to introduce my guest today, Heidi Jane. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And so those of you who tune into this podcast, you know I like to keep information short and sweet. I like to delve right into the conversation because I know as busy moms, we are driving, folding clothes, doing something, and we don't want to be interrupted by our kiddos. So I just want to have this be another jam-packed, awesome episode talking about the science of reading and some tips that you can really take away. So Heidi, I know this is probably going to open up your story. And I think this is so important because whenever I bring guests on, I really like to hear who they are in the context of science of reading. And, I really want to know, what brought you to the science of reading world? Were you an early believer of science of reading, or did you need to break away from that whole language balance literacy world? Tell us a little bit about your journey in the science of reading.
Yeah, so I definitely wish that I was an early believer. Teaching is actually my second career. A lot of people don't know that, but teaching, it's actually my second career. So when I went to school for teaching, it was a grad program because I already had gotten my bachelor's and there was just no mention of it. And then when I started teaching, it was all very much balanced literacy, whole language programs that I was required to use through my district. So I had no idea. I did know that some of the things we were doing didn't sound right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like skipping a word when the kids are reading. I literally had to teach that lesson. I had to teach kids to skip a word if they didn't know it.
Oh my gosh.
Literally hurts my stomach thinking that I actually did that. But you don't know better until you do. So I knew there were some things in memorizing hundreds of sight words, things like that. I knew, this is just stressful for me, for the kids. But I didn't know that there was anything else out there. So I actually found out about the science of reading on accident.
Oh my gosh. I had another podcast guest who said the same thing too.
Yes. I was working with my son and my husband is also a teacher. And when I was working with my son, he knew his letters and his sounds. So I figured, okay, let's start with words like cat, bat, those things, right? Because you know your letters, you know your sounds. Okay, now we can start blending words. That's what I thought. And so I was doing that. And my husband came down and I remember the day exactly. And he was like, what are you doing? Kind of rude. And I was like, obviously, I'm teaching our kid to read. What's the problem?
What's the problem, right?
And he was my first grade teacher. We're both first grade teachers, but he went to school like 5 years after me. He went to the same school that I did. In the time since I left, they had implemented this exam that people had to take that was like the foundations of reading. So he was kind of introduced to some of the things that I didn't know about. And so he didn't know to the depth that we know now, but he knew something. And he's like, no. He starts telling me our son, he needs phonological and phonemic awareness. And Lauren, I'm telling you, I had no idea what he was talking about.
You're like, what is this language? What are you talking about?
Yes, I literally looked at him and I was like, you have no idea what you are talking about. And then I'm like, if this was so important, somebody would have told me. Do you know how many professional I had to go to? Stay after school late and go on our days off and attend all these trainings. I've never been taught this. And so it can't really be a thing, right?
Right.
And so I actually started researching about those terms more to prove my husband wrong. Yes. And here we are. He was right. And then, when I found out, I was actually really upset. Really upset.
Yeah.
Suddenly, all of these kids that had struggled to read in all of my years teaching, they all flooded back to my head. And I'm thinking about all of them and I'm thinking, this is what they needed.
Right.
If somebody would have told me, I could have helped these kids. So I was very upset. And I still go through like cycles of, being upset, feeling guilty and all of those things. But you have to just get past that at some point and just know that you didn't know.
Yeah. It's so funny you talking about, first of all, teaching being your second career. And then secondly, talking about how your husband went through the same program 5 years later. I love hearing these stories because for me personally, I lived in a bubble the first 4 years of my career because when I think back to my graduate program, I did not learn anything about phonics and phonemic awareness. I mean, I think there was like a light dusting, but it wasn't really like, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's talk about dyslexia. Let's talk about how we can really help these kids. But I had the privilege of starting my career in a specialized private school where I was automatically like science of reading Orton Gillingham trained. And so it wasn't until I left that environment, came to public school, and I was literally, I laugh at myself, many years ago, but literally I was like, what is wrong with these people? I was like, why don't they care that I'm Orton Gillingham certified? Like, don't they realize that this is a positive thing? And they're looking at me like, okay, and I'm like,
I would have looked at you like that too. Like, okay.
Right. And so that was the eye opener for me. And so now hearing people like you who were not saying that you bought into it, but I know there were some people who were buying into the whole balanced literacy and all of that. And we know as people in this space, in this community, you and I, that once Sold a Story came out, that was like in your face. You really can't ignore this anymore. You really need to understand that this is research. It's been around. It's just not talked about as much, but we now know that there are certain states and IDAs accrediting certain programs, universities where they need to have some sort of understanding of the science of reading or some sort of test in their teaching certification to prove that they at least understand the basics. Right. So I love hearing how you were telling your husband, like, you're nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
So Heidi, you are literally everywhere. You're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on Teachers Pay Teachers, and you even have memberships to your Science of Reading webinars and courses. So what would be the first resource that you'd recommend to parents who are needing immediate help with their child's reading right now?
So I guess I would say if you don't want to commit to a membership right now, then to start with the social media. It can just be a little overwhelming with the social media. As hard as I try with playlists on TikTok and highlights on Instagram to try to put everything together, the videos are just like everywhere and kind of all over the place. But there's a ton of free information out there, and my website too. My website would be a great place to start. I try to just keep it simple and give you an overview. And I'm working on some longer length YouTube videos now that I'm embedding into my website. Yeah. And I'm embedding them into my website so that you can just have like a one-stop shop and
that's
learn,
great.
As much as you can. I also do have a free webinar right now for just 3 tips. It's simple. It's 30 minutes. It's super fast for anybody teaching kids to read. Early readers or struggling readers. That's the idea for the webinar. And then I think there's different things for different people. And then the membership, I designed the membership and I started the membership because people were overwhelmed purchasing things on TPT, not knowing what to do with them.
Right.
And then going to social media and just having too much information. Sometimes that's super overwhelming. Right. Where do you even start? Okay, I'm hearing all of this, but where do I start? So that's why I came up with the membership, because it's just a place that you can go. I have a whole start here section that slowly gets you started. You can take quizzes to see where your child is at, where you're at with your knowledge. And then we have live trainings every month and a library of videos that you can watch to learn more about different topics with teaching reading. And everything is kind of broken down by skills. So I just try to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
Anybody teaching a child to read to get this information.
I love that. When you said it might be overwhelming if people aren't interested in the membership piece, your videos are very engaging. And I feel like you give so much jam-packed information. And even I learn from you in so many different ways. And I just think that for parents who are, I guess I would say, early in this journey, not like you first got this diagnosis, because that's like a whole whirlwind within itself. Yeah. But I think if you've been in this journey, let's say for a year, and you're noticing the holes, the gaps in your child's academic education, and the school's not providing what they need, I think going to your TikTok or Instagram for those videos is a great place to start. because it's really like what? They're no more than 2 minutes, a minute.
Well, supposedly TikTok wants longer form videos right now, but I'm not into it. So they're usually less than a minute. And my whole goal really, when I started sharing on social media, was to reach parents and teachers like me who didn't know and who don't have a PhD and are not researchers. And I really don't like all these, I don't want to say hate, but I really don't like all these big researcher terms, like, can you just put it down for me and tell me what that actually means? And so that's really my goal with everything, my membership, my resources, my social media, is just to make it accessible for everybody.
Yeah, and relatable. And I think you're absolutely right, because, I always say like reading and writing is a civil right. However, there is a science to it. But when parents want to really get involved and help their child, it isn't helpful if they are getting these scientific terms and they're like, I don't even understand. Like, honestly, I remember I took a class, I think it was my senior year of college, because I tacked on an education minor my junior year because I was a psych major and finished early. I had to take a class that was basically like a speech language pathology 101. And I got to tell you, I knew immediately I did not want to be an SLP because it was literally all of the vocabulary. And then I remember we were learning the mouth placement and we had to know all of the work. I was like, this is too much. I was like, this is overwhelming for me, and I have so much respect for SLPs. So I relate that to parents that are like, I don't understand. And I've seen this whenever I debrief with parents after tutoring sessions, and I have to remind myself that not every parent wants to hear all the details. But I mean, I'm throwing all these words out, and sometimes parents are like asking questions because they want to really know the big terms. Mm-hmm. And then other parents are like glazed over. They're just like, is my child improving or what? And I'm just like, oh, sorry.
Right.
Yes.
You know what is so funny? I'm going to be the glazed over parent. That's how I am. And so I really just try to share information in that way because it can be so overwhelming.
Absolutely. I just realized that recently. I was like, maybe I should ask them if they want this much information because it's just not fair if they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, it's your favorite podcast host, Dr. Lauren. Have I told you how much I appreciate you as a listener? Well, if I haven't, I want to tell you just how much I do today. You're the reason I come back every week with top-notch content with guests to help you navigate this DQ journey. But I gotta tell you, organizing and getting these episodes up and running doesn't come cheap. I have a fantastic podcast team that takes care of me and you to ensure that episodes are high quality and show notes are detailed and riddled with goodies for you to use and apply for your next steps in this journey. But can I ask you a favor? We'd love to have your support to keep the podcast up and running. You can donate as little or as much as you'd like to support the podcast. All you need to do is go to the link in the show notes or visit our website at thinkdyslexia.me and click support the podcast, and it will take you exactly where you need to be. Oh, and one last thing. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and of course, share this podcast with others who are on the same journey as you. So let's transition to sight words. Okay, so I know that you are a letters trainer, and this is something that is really big now where we don't have to teach kids to memorize sight words. So I would love if you could delve a little bit deeper into why memorizing sight words isn't helpful for our kiddos, and what are some tips that you can offer parents who are navigating this journey within the public schools, because we know that's something that's still happening.
Yes, it is something that's still happening, unfortunately. And yeah, thanks for allowing me to talk about this because this is one of my biggest passions because
yes,
I will tell you, I 100% believe, and this is my belief, I don't have anything to back this up, but I 100% believe that the focus on memorizing words in kindergarten, first and second grade is a huge reason why our kids are struggling to read in third, fourth, and fifth. I believe that because we are spending so much time on it, and that's from my experience as a first grade teacher, and less time on actually giving kids the skills that they need to decode words when they get to third, fourth, and fifth grade, that they're ending up in third, fourth, and fifth grade without the decoding skills that they need because we're so focused on getting them to memorize 100 words.
Right.
And so I think this is a huge issue. and something that is just really close to home, because in my first grade classroom, getting kids to memorize, and I only did 100 words. I've heard of classrooms now that are doing 400 words every 9 weeks. And
oh my gosh.
I am telling you, Lauren, one kindergarten grandparent, she said, my grandchild had a list of sight words taller than a 20-ounce soda bottle. And I said, no way. She sent me a picture.
Oh my gosh.
It literally
400 words in did you say 9 weeks?
9 weeks. And then somebody said 100 words a week. I don't believe that.
That's insane. That's insane.
I mean, I get comments about this stuff and it just seems like it's getting worse, because I did 100 words in a year. And I just want to say that was stressful. Yeah, that was stressful, doing 100 words in a year in first grade. And I would still have kids who left me at the end of the year not knowing all 100 words. And it's like, what happened? Because everything revolved around getting kids to learn these words.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And now I know the reason why they didn't know them by the time they left me is because our brains don't learn to read that way, and our brains don't read that way. We don't memorize whole words. And although as adults, it seems like we're reading whole words, we are not. We are still processing every symbol. We're matching sounds to symbols, and we're still doing that as adults. We just get lightning fast at it. So there's a cognitive neuroscientist, Stanislas Dehaene. He wrote Reading in the Brain, and this is where a lot of my information has come from, that and then the work of another researcher, Linnea Airy, and her work with orthographic mapping. But not to get too technical, there's a lot of research. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I hate using these big terms, but I just want to say, and I want people to know, that there's a lot of research backing this up, including brain scans and, research on tracking people's eyes when they're reading and how our brains store words, and research studies after study after study that just shows and reinforces that we don't read whole words, and memorizing words just isn't it. Also, for parents listening or teachers listening, memorizing words can take hundreds of repetitions per word. That's why we do everything. We do, have them on a word wall, put them here, put them there, do flashcards, and we're always exposing them to the words because they need so many repetitions if we're going to have them memorize it. But with, matching sounds to symbols and teaching through word mapping, it just takes a couple repetitions. And that's what got me hooked. Because I'll tell you, when I first heard the term orthographic mapping, I thought, I don't know what that is, and I don't care.
Right.
I don't like that term.
I don't like it. I don't want to talk about it.
I'm like, oh, that just sounds too technical for me.
Right.
I don't want to have anything to do with that. But that has been the biggest change for me, is just this whole new way of learning words. And it works for high frequency words, spelling words, any words that you want kids to learn. Having them match sounds to symbols is the best way to go.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I was a little traumatized hearing 400 words in 9 weeks, 9 months, 9 weeks, whatever it was. I kind of went into shutdown mode myself. So I can only imagine those little bodies, those little brains. Yeah. And it really puts a level of stress on our kiddos. And for me, as a practitioner and educational therapist, I look at the whole picture, and I'm sure you do as well, where it has to be emotionally sound too. So we can't just keep drilling. You're not getting this. You need to practice more. You need to do more flashcards. You need to do, it's like, they're not machines. We all learn it, first of all, in different ways. And I think that when we have, that whole memorize. I mean, to me, honestly, that never worked for me. And I realized later on, because I'm neurodiverse myself, I have ADHD, so it wasn't sticking. It wasn't working. And every teacher, and now obviously this was years ago, would be like, well, you're not studying enough and you need to use flashcards. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Like, flashcards don't work for me. So I just think about our struggling readers and our dyslexic readers who really doing the best they can. But I mean, memorizing and storing it. And then if you look at kids' working memories, some kids just have poor working memories. They can't retrieve that. They can't store it. And so when we're forcing them to just memorize and not, as you said, not giving them the skills, that's where it really gets tricky, because really the mastery of education is not regurgitating and remembering everything. It's literally, how can you teach this to someone else? Do you have the skill to apply it to something else, to build on something else? So I just think that is so critical. I want to ask you this. This is like a second part to this question. How can parents navigate that if their kid is coming home being like stressed out because they need to memorize 50 sight words in 5 minutes. I mean, what do you recommend the parents do with that?
So I'm going to say what I would do and then give some like more logical.
Yeah.
I honestly, if that happened to my child, I would talk to my child and I would say that I would kind of just explain like, okay, this is what the teacher knows. This is what the teacher's saying. But you know what? We don't have to do this. You don't have to know all of these words. We're going to work on this instead. And I'm going to work on giving my child the skills, which is phonemic awareness and letter sound skills. They need those 2 skills in order to be successful readers. And so once a child has those 2 skills, then we can work on word mapping where I'm going to say the word. Like if I say the word said, I'm going to say the word and then I'm going to have my child repeat the word. And then I'm going to have my child tell me the sounds in the word. So here's where the skills come in, because now the child has to be able to say s, d, and tell me and break apart those sounds. If they can't do that, they're not ready to learn words. And this is where we're kind of messing up in education is we're teaching these words before kids have these skills. And so then once they tell me the sounds, okay, now what's the first sound? And they say, s. How do we spell s?
Right.
You know, and so we're spelling each sound. And then when we get to the irregular part, how do we spell eh? I want them to tell me with an E, yes, because that's telling me now that they have those letter sound skills. They know how they're spelled, right?
Exactly.
So, and then I tell them, yes, you're correct. We normally do. But in the word said, it's a little bit different. And this is how we're going to spell it. And so we just go through that process. And doing that, even though the school is promoting memorization, is not going to hurt your child.
Right.
So I want to make that clear that you can still do that, even though the school is not doing it that way. And then I would also say, as a teacher and a parent, I would very much encourage you to be a voice at the school. Go talk to the teacher, go talk to the administrator. I can't tell you how many times there was issues going on and I tried to get the parents because maybe the teacher does know, but she's stuck. And a lot of times districts are more likely to listen to parent voices than they are teacher voices. It's just I feel like sometimes they can think like, oh, teachers are just complaining again. Teachers, you know, don't want to teach this. But a lot of times having that parent voice can be pretty powerful as well. So I would very much encourage you to say to the teacher even, have you heard of this word mapping? You know, you can even just ask, have you heard of this? And oh my gosh, I was listening to this podcast that said, you know, if you match sounds to symbols, kids only need a couple repetitions and then they're going to know this word. And I'll tell you, Lauren, I saw it with my own 2 kids. I have an older child who went through school in a balanced literacy world and struggles to read. And then my son, I did this with him with the word said 2 times. And I'm telling you, the word said, as a first grade teacher, if there's any first grade teachers listening, they already know what I'm thinking. And what I'm going to say is that word is just like an all year word. It's so hard for kids to said and the. They were just like, oh my gosh, they would know them one day, forget them the next day, whatever.
Right.
I mapped the word said with my son 2 times because he had the skills to do it. And I never, ever, ever had to teach that word again. I did not show him flashcards. I did not use a word wall. We did not practice it in any way. He could read it when he saw it. And that's our goal, right? Have kids read the words when they see them. That's the point of teaching them these words so they could read them in text. And he could do that. And at that point is when I was like, oh my gosh, this actually works. And know, the science works.
I love that. And I really hope that parents out there who are listening are taking some detailed notes because that does make sense. When you really have the skills to break down those tricky words, even if we say you can sound it out, we don't really mean the typical way that teachers back in the day would be like, well, sound it out. Like we literally mean like, you know what sound S makes. Well, AI doesn't say eh, but that's, you know, the irregular part. And then you know what sound D makes. So I love that. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I know that you're so passionate about that. So I was like, we've got to talk about this.
You know, and I think about how stressful teaching these words, teaching kids to memorize these words was for me. And I know it was stressful for my kids. And I know it was stressful for the parents.
Right. It really shouldn't be, you know, but I think that this is such a contentious topic for so many people who are against science of reading. And it's very controversial. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is because there's so many programs out there that are making millions of dollars, but there's evidence to support it's not working. But of course, money talks. So that's always, you know.
And that is why we say literacy and justice for all.
Exactly. And I know that you have your shirts that say that, and I love that. Speaking of which, we are coming to the end of the episode, and I always want my guests to promote their business. So tell us a little bit about your business and how people can find you, Heidi.
For sure. Thanks. So I do have a ton of free information on my website, droppinKnowledge.com. It is Droppin without the G. And so droppinKnowledge.com has a ton of information and other ways to even connect. You can find the membership there. I have a whole freebie library. So if you sign up for that, you get access to tons of free resources that are in there, and that is growing. And I would love to see you in the membership. Again, it is designed for anyone teaching kids to read. And we have new things every single month, tons of information. There's new resources all the time, new videos all the time. And so, yeah, my website is the best place to go. All of my social media is Droppin Knowledge with Heidi. So you could find me there and check out the videos. I hope that you will if you're listening, because especially with the sight words that we talked about today, there is a page on my website that just says sight words, and you can learn more because we kind of just covered it quickly today here. But
yes. In this brief episode.
If you're like, wait, there's a different way to teach sight words, let me check it out. You can go to droppinKnowledge.com and then click on topics and go to sight words and learn a ton more. It's all there for you for free.
Yes. So Heidi, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to speak with me and the audience, because I know that they definitely got some knowledge. You were dropping knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tune in next week for another awesome episode of the Dyslexia Mom Boss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share, give us a review. I really love seeing your feedback. If there's anything that you want me to cover, shoot me an email and I will definitely respond. So see you guys next week.